A steep box canyon just east of Salt Lake City in the Wasatch Mountains claims another aircraft, killing one and seriously injuring a second person on board this aircraft. My name is Juan Brown. You're watching the BLANCOLIRIO channel. Let's check it out. This accident occurred on Sunday, the 31st of August. A Piper PA-28R-200 Cherokee Aero 2. That's a IO360 powered 200 horsepower Cherokee with retractable gear and a constant speed prop, 1975 model, November 1147X ray. This aircraft was destroyed when it crashed under unknown circumstances in a rugged wooded terrain in the Albion Basin area, Little Cottonwood Canyon near Alta, Utah. The pilot sustained serious injuries and the passenger sustained fatal injuries. Witnesses saw the aircraft at a very low AGL, above ground level altitude, immediately before the crash. The plane attempted to turn left and then immediately turned right before once again turning left to the north. The plane was too low at this point to avoid the terrain and crashed into the tree tops. The ground speed of the craft seemed very slow before impact, with the engine at or near full throttle. The accident site was surrounded by mountaintops and canyons, and the density altitude was calculated at approximately 12,000 feet. The accident site is found right here on the side of Albion Basin Road, just up from the ski resort there near Alta, and just to the east of Salt Lake City area, into the steep Wasatch Mountains. Now, in this news report, some eyewitnesses did capture a little tiny bit of video data of the crash. The eyewitnesses describing it, the rough terrain surrounding the crash site. Okay, there it is right there. Do you see the airplane? Right down here, already at a high angle of attack, much too low to turn around and get out of this very dangerous situation. And there was the stall of the right wing. Right there. The aircraft is registered to an LLC called Pax Flyers out of Maryland, the East Coast. The NTSB data is a little spotty of the actual crash due to the steepness of the canyon, but looking at the overall history of the aircraft, it looks like the aircraft is based back in Maryland, which is what we commonly call flatland country. In other words, this pilot is normally based back out east, and the first question NTSB investigators are going to have is regarding the pilot. How much experience does he have with mountain flying? And it looks like he came out west to take a big trip, and perhaps was on his way back home eastbound when he decided to go up Little Cottonwood Canyon. When we take the limited NTSB data and put it here on to Google Earth, the prior batch of data showed the aircraft coming down Interstate 80 and then down this way before picking up the data here and proceeding up the Cottonwood Canyon. Once this pilot made this decision to go up this canyon with this aircraft at 5 o'clock in the afternoon at those temperatures at a density altitude of 12,000 feet, with the performance of that aircraft, once he got his nose into this canyon at 8,452 feet, where the data drops off here, his fate was sealed. If we take a more oblique view of this, we can see from this altitude the terrain is going to eventually outclimb the performance capability of his aircraft to get out of this bowl, choosing perhaps the highest bowl of them all to the east of Salt Lake City to travel to the east. The last time I came through here, we came down through Immigration Canyon here. This is very steep and tall terrain. And under no circumstances would I ever try to go up one of these canyons, especially in the middle of the afternoon, with an aircraft of this sort of performance. This is aeronautical decision making made by a pilot with limited mountain flying experience. The other clue is the fact that this pilot chose to go directly up the center of the canyon instead of choosing one side or the other. so that you give yourself a way out, some room to maneuver. Now let's go up this canyon. As you can see, this pilot managed to choose the highest of all of the box canyons just to the east of Salt Lake City. Here's I believe this is a ski area here in Alta. You get past the ski area, and then you got to hang a right, and you are down in this bowl surrounded by higher terrain with virtually no way out. And I believe this crash occurred right about over here in this clear area here, or perhaps even a little further up the road into here. You are boxed in, trapped, hemmed in by higher terrain, but so close to reaching the top. Included in the Aviation Safety Network database was this synoptic temperature of the location of the crash at the time of the crash, about 67 degrees. It's 67 degrees and 9,500 feet, which is where the aircraft crashed at elevation-wise. That density altitude works out to about 12,000 feet. There, about 12,262 feet. By the way, what is density altitude? It's just this: pressure altitude corrected for temperature. In this case, I just gave them standard pressure altitude. Density altitude is going to give you the actual aircraft performance. If we take a quick look at the Cherokee Aero Operating Manual, density altitude can also easily be calculated here in your POH using this graph here. We see the service ceiling at gross weight as 15,000 feet. Density altitude of 12,000 feet, you're within 3,000 feet of your service ceiling. Looking at the climb performance chart for this aircraft, density altitude over here on the left, density altitude, not your actual altitude of 9,500 feet, but 12,000 feet density altitude, you're looking at a climb rate at full power at gross weight of just over 200 feet per minute. Now, that engine is a IO360. It's about 200 horsepower engine at density altitude of 12,000 feet. That thing's only putting out maybe 64% of its total horsepower because it's a naturally aspirated engine. In other words, it's only putting out about 128 horsepower, wide open, properly leaned. That's another thing a lot of pilots that are not experienced in the mountains do not know how to properly lean their engines for maximum power in these sort of conditions. So let's fire up this canyon with MS-2020 and the Logitech controller. Now, our mishap pilot elected to fly right up the middle of this canyon, something I just can't do. I'm favoring the right side of the canyon, trying to leave myself a way out. So climbing at about 200 to 300 feet per minute is about what the Cherokee or the Archer II aircraft would be doing at that load, at that density altitude, in these conditions. The accident's going to happen right up in here on the VFR map. Okay, we should be coming up on the ski resort ahead of us now, and then you can begin to see the bowl of high terrain emerging ahead. See the airspeed slowly decaying. See the angle of attack starting to go a little bit into the yellow here. At just 200 feet per minute, wide open throttle, even with the mixture leaned out. Now, at some point up here, do we make the bid to the right to continue up the canyon? Nearly 10,000 feet, 50 knots indicated. Get rid of this world map, VFR map here. Now we're stuck in this bowl, surrounded by higher terrain, and I believe it's this clear spot off to the left here where this crash occurs. So trying to get out of this bowl. Can you do it? The Here's the stall warning horn right there. Try to lower the nose, try to get out of there. Can you get out of there? I made it that time. Back down to 9,500 feet. All you got to do is add a little bit of wind or a downdraft. If you've got a maximum climb capability of just 200 to 300 feet per minute, winds up here, even on a calm day, but in the middle of the afternoon, the thermals and the wind activity can easily exceed 200 to 300 feet per minute. Stick our nose back into the lion's mouth. See if we can make it further up the pass here. 9,700 feet, 60 knots. Try to hang on to that airspeed. ,200 feet per minute, 55 knots. If you delay the decision to turn, too late. We're so close to the top of the ridge there. If we try to maneuver the way the witnesses described it, a turn to the left and a turn to the right. That's just a gentle turn to the left, just cannot make it. Boom! Look at that right wing drop off, just like in the accident sequence. So the NTSB will be carefully looking at the aircraft, the pilot, and the environment. So that means the NTSB will have to carefully tear down that engine and make sure there wasn't any engine troubles that could have precluded getting out of this box canyon. They'll be looking carefully at the pilot's flying background and his logbook and history to determine how much experience did this pilot have in mountain flying, and the environment we've already discussed with the density, altitude, and the high terrain. There is no reason you should have never, the moment this pilot stuck his nose up this box canyon, his fate was sealed. This is absolutely poor ADM, or aeronautical decision making. There are much safer ways to get over the Wasatch Mountains and continue your flight safely to the east. 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday afternoon is no time to take a scenic ride up one of these box canyons. It's much safer to get some altitude here over the Salt Lake area and then proceed along Interstate 80, a much more gradual route. Even the immigrants knew that, in order to clear these mountains safely. Do not stick your nose into a blind box canyon. That will get you, the PK factor of the ground is 100%. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.